way of introduction, I thought I would tell you that my background is pretty interdisciplinary. I actually have an undergraduate degree in economics, and my master's degree is in geosciences, and my PhD is in forestry and environmental engineering, so I'm sort of a bit of an academic mutt in the kind of training I have. But there are some really coherent themes in the kinds of things that I'm interested in. Sometimes when I explain how I came out of economics into what I do, I say I've always sort of been fundamentally interested in system behavior, and economics is really a great field for understanding how systems work and using models to explain systems. But the kind of work that I'm really interested in is captured in these 3 bullet points. And I'm very fundamentally interested in hydrology and geomorphology, and sort of increasingly interested in nutrient transport. And there's a really geographic specificity to that, in that I'm really interested in mountain settings. And if you've ever engaged in any way with erosion or erosional processes, Matt will appreciate this, like the action is in the mountains because they're high gradient landscapes and there are big gradients in precipitation and so on. So there's no sort of accident to being interested in mountain settings. It's really where my passion is. And I'm really interested in the sort of management connection to the applied dimensions of how we manage the mountain landscape and what that does to basic process dynamics. Over my career, first as a graduate student and then more recently here in Vermont, I've had the great fortune to have my research interrupted by extreme flood events. And so that has kind of galvanized an interest in flood dynamics and how they operate and how important they are for material transport. And then I guess sort of at the most theoretical levels, I'm really interested in the concept of landscape connectivity, how components of watersheds sort of connect together. And how does that connectivity affect the routing of materials, water, sediment, nutrients through the landscape? And sort of also kind of to give you a sense of where I come from intellectually, I'll say that my whole approach to what I do has really been shaped by having been a graduate student at the Andrews LTER site. I did my graduate work at Oregon State and did both my master's and PhD at the Andrews, and I'll talk a little bit about some of that research in a minute. But it was a really formative experience because, as you all know, LTER sites are these loci of thinkers, that come together. There are people from different disciplinary perspectives that come together. The value of the long-term data sets ends up being really rich, and so that experience of having grown up academically in that environment was very important, and it sort of has steered what I've done in a lot of ways. Some initiatives that I've started here and this new initiative that I'm working on now in South America.